Sarah, thank you. Dr. Robert Rabil is a professor of Middle Eastern and International Studies at Florida Atlantic University. Dr. Rabil, welcome. Great to see you in the new year.
Thank you, Ms. Cake. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you.
Wonderful to have you on. Let's get you right off the top here. And Sarah's reporting there, the UN really taking issue with the arrest of Nicolas Maduro, the pushback from the international community. Your reaction, sir?
Well, as a matter of fact, the pushback is wrong and the United Nations is wrong. Simply put, United States, what it did to protect merely the national interest of United States. And let's not forget, they're all speaking about Maduro. Maduro really, he is not the president of Venezuela. He became a president thanks to the fraud. You had fraud in the election in 2024, fraud in the election in 2018. So mainly when they say about it, I think they have more to say about criticizing United States than speaking about what United States did to protect the security of United States and protect the Venezuelan and other people. What United States did was merely within the bound of our security, of our international law, and merely our domestic law. Maduro was indicted in a New York court, was indicted as a terrorist, him and his regime, and thus United States had to take action. And this is the way I look at it.
I'm curious, and there is pushback domestically as well in this. The United States seems to be sidestepping the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Machado, who was elected in a democratically held election, going with Delcy Rodriguez instead, Maduro's vice president. The administration says this is a stabilization move, but how do you get, Dr. Rabil, to a democratic outcome with members of the Maduro regime still in place?
Okay, this is something, Ms. Cake, you have to consider one thing. Venezuela is going now through a transition process. And based on my experience and my knowledge, since I dealt with Iraq, I still remember very well when we went to Iraq and took the opposition. Mainly, we expected the opposition mainly to have grassroots support and all this. And what happened after that, you have the dismantling of the army. So my point is, it's a very sensitive time. It's a short period, 6 months to 1 year. You cannot have the election before you stabilize. And in order to stabilize, you need people on the ground, including from the army of Venezuela, which I don't consider all they are bad people, to go stabilize Venezuela. And then you go the election, and then Machado can run again. And I think she had very good advantage, to become president again. This is, I think, how the U.S. president and how the cabinet, and especially the intelligence of United States, whom I believe they played a key role in the arrest of Maduro.
I appreciate you breaking that down for us. I think that was, not being well understood, especially domestically here in this country. Very quickly, this is a complete recalibration of power in the Western Hemisphere. The U.S. now running Venezuela, Russia, China, Iran. They cannot find a home in the Western Hemisphere at this point.
Well, as a matter of fact, China already has established a strong economic foothold in Latin America, really. It invested billions of dollars. It has 29 deep ports. And with deep ports, as it did in Africa, these ports are not only for trade. They are for docking nuclear submarines. So here I am happy with what United States did. I'm happy with the president at what he did. Now, regarding Russia, Russia does not have much influence here. Russia, where does the influence? In the North Pole. And this is why United States is moving to Greenland. Greenland mainly is on the border of the Arctic Ocean, and given being on the border of the Arctic Ocean, mainly it becomes, very much, clear to Russia, near Russia, and what Russia is doing. I want to tell you one thing. Russia has militarized the North Pole. It has already 6 military bases, and China is behind it. And China not only is behind it, but it's supporting it. And now they have a huge gas refinery there. Now, regarding Iran, Iran really faced a severe blow, really, because Iran does not have the money, does not have the technology, does not have. And Iran and Hezbollah, really, and this is what we are going to see. And I hope that the new regime, mainly now in the transition, the first thing they should do is that expel the Cuban intelligence officer, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and of course the Hezbollah people who have entrenched themselves since the 1990s,
Yeah.
not only in Venezuela and other area in our south of the border.
Dr. Rabil, speaking of Iran, I want to welcome in Alireza Jafarzadeh. He's the spokesperson for the National Council of Resistance of Iran to this conversation. Welcome. Good to see you. I want to play some images from the protests in the streets of Tehran, clashes with security forces. The protests, they started in Tehran. They spread to 220 locations across 26 provinces now. These protesters chanting slogans against the Ayatollah and the ruling clerics. Update us, if you can, on what's happening on the ground. And are the problems in Venezuela creating trouble?
Well, Shannon, first of all, Happy New Year, and thank you for inviting me. Definitely what you see in Iran, and this is the second week of the protest, even though it started in Tehran by the small businesses protesting about the loss of value of the Iranian currency, but it soon expanded to other parts of Tehran, other cities, the smaller towns, and also to the students. So you have a nationwide protests in almost all provinces of Iran with the chants of death to Khamenei, death to the dictatorship, rejecting any form of dictatorship, whether the monarchical dictatorship of the past or the current theocracy, making it very clear that no matter what the regime has done or will do, the people are not going to settle. This is a new phase. Following the several rounds of major uprisings since 2017. But the most important characteristic this time is that this regime has never been so weak and so vulnerable. The population have made their determination. Remember, in 2025, the Iran regime stepped up execution of prisoners, including political prisoners. 2,200 people were executed in 2025. This is the highest rate of executions since Khamenei became supreme leader in 1989. And the whole goal was to prevent the resurgence of uprisings. And guess what? The whole thing backfired. So you have a determined nation, you have a younger generation who are inspired by years of resistance of the main Iranian opposition movement on the ground, the MEK, who was been on the forefront of opposing the regime. They're the ones who exposed the major nuclear sites of Iran. They're the main target of the killings inside Iran, but also their terrorism. And they're also the ones who have a platform for a totally different future for Iran based on democracy, political pluralism, and a republic form of government.
So we've heard that there is growing, mounting pressure on the Ayatollah because of the protests you're seeing on the streets here. There's talk this morning that he's making a plan B, possibly to leave the country, fleeing perhaps to Russia if the security forces don't hold. We do know there's been talk, we know that 20 people have been killed, protesters, 990 arrested now. And the Ayatollah made that comment saying that protesters need to be put in their place. President Trump, of course, promised on Truth Social that if Iran kills peaceful protesters, the U.S. would step in and rescue them. What does that support mean, sir, to the resistance there on the ground?
It's extremely important for the outside world to really stand on the side of the people of Iran. The position stated by President Trump about the killings inside Iran is crucial because, and certainly it's a welcome situation by those resistance on the ground and everywhere else to see firmness and decisiveness on the part of the United States. Remember, the past few decades, basically the West has been being really complicit. They stayed silent about the killings. The mullahs are used to the policy of concessions and appeasement. That, of course, has to change. In a large part, it has, but we still have a long way to go. It's so important for the outside world to recognize the right of the people on the ground, the resistance units, to on the Revolutionary Guards and end the rule of the clerics. Because at the end of the day, remember, the head of the stake of war and terror lies in Tehran, so does the solution. There's no need for boots on the ground or foreign boots on the ground or appropriation of money. The people of Iran have the capability and intent. They have a very organized force headed by a woman, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, who has a very clear platform for the future, who has people who are fighting on the ground. And that's a very unique situation. You mentioned Venezuela. I think that was a sad day for Supreme Leader Khamenei to lose another ally, this time in the Western Hemisphere. And this came after they lost their ally in the Middle East. That was Assad in Syria. So the momentum is shifting against the regime and in favor of the resistance.
It is absolutely fascinating to get your take on it. Alireza Jafarzadeh from the National Council of Resistance in Iran. I have a feeling we'll be talking to you again in the not-so-distant future. And Dr. Robert Rabil, professor of Middle Eastern and International Studies at Florida Atlantic University. Fabulous conversation from both of you. Thanks so much for your time. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
There has been